So what we're talking about is taxation without representation. That is, taxation without a representation of Caesar. We're going to look at the story of how Jesus dealt with paying taxes to Caesar. The story is in the Bible in 3 different places. It's in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. The Pharisees and the Herodians were both having difficulty with Jesus, and so they both decided that they wanted to set a trap for Jesus. Well, how are they going to do it? And they worked together and came up with this idea. So they went to Jesus and they said to him, "Master, we know that you show no partiality toward anyone. We know that you're a fair judge of things, and so we want you to tell us, should we pay taxes to Caesar or not?" Well, Jesus sensed that this was a trap. He was no dummy. He said to them, "Show me the coin for the tax." And so they produced a coin and showed it to him. Jesus said, "Whose picture is this on the coin? Whose inscription?" And they said, "Well, it's Caesar's, of course." Jesus said to them, "Well, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's." Now, before we get too deeply into this story, to try to understand it, there's a backstory that we need to look at. All right, so here's where it starts getting interesting. So the Herodians and the Pharisees come to Jesus, and they ask him, should we pay the tax to Caesar or not? Now, it seems like a pretty easy question. You know, the Roman coin has on it an image of Caesar, and so of course you don't want to be idolatrous, and so of course you're not going to pay the tax to Caesar. Easy, right? You know, you're going to be a good Jew. You're not going to pay the tax to Caesar. Well, when Caesar doesn't get paid his tax money, Caesar gets cranky. And when he gets cranky, well, you wouldn't like Caesar when he's cranky. He'll send in soldiers and troops and build up his war machine and pound on the people until they do what he wants. The question of whether to pay taxes to Caesar was not really as easy as the idea of it's idolatrous or it's not. There were huge political consequences if you didn't pay taxes to Caesar. And within the country of Judea, there were consequences if you did pay taxes to Caesar too. So when they asked Jesus the question, it was a very loaded question. Basically, what they were saying to him is, are you going to say not to pay taxes to Caesar and become a rebel that needs to be hunted down and imprisoned? Or are you going to say that we should pay taxes to Caesar, and then you're sympathizing with the Romans and advocating idolatry, and the people you're preaching to, they're not going to be able to trust you? They gave him an impossible choice. So what did Jesus do with it? They come to him and they say, "Master, we know that you have no partiality, that you'll tell it to people just like it is, and that's what we want to hear. We want to hear how it is." They were buttering him up. But as his enemies, they were also hostile witnesses to the fact that Jesus wasn't partial to anyone, that Jesus would tell the truth no matter what. They were being witnesses to his reputation as an honest person. Even though they weren't really trying to help his cause, they were trying to tear him down, even they had to admit that he was honest. And so he asks them to show him the coin, and so they produce the coin. Well, what does that tell us? They had the coin so easily. It tells us, first of all, that they paid taxes. And so if they were trying to catch him being idolatrous, well, they were just as guilty as him. They held the idolatrous coin as well. And so that kind of paints them as hypocrites. So that Jesus then asked them, whose image is it on the coin? Whose name? And they said, well, Caesar's, of course. And Jesus' attitude is basically, well, if it's got his picture on it and his name on it, it must belong to him. And then he draws out his conclusion. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's. It doesn't seem so much like a no-win situation, does it? Well, that's it for today's Theology Quip Note. Join me next month for The Woman Caught in Adultery. For St. Luke Catholic Church, this is Ray Hurdle with Theology Quip Notes. Our next Theology Quip Note is going to be about the woman caught in idolatry. No.